I was sitting at the table in my small rented flat, holding the last unpaid receipt in my hands. The lights in the room were dim, and a feeling of hopelessness clutched my chest. I never thought I would be in this situation. I'd always handled things on my own without asking for help. But now I was out of work, and my savings were gone to pay bills and debts. The only thought that went through my head was, maybe my brother can help me. He always said that we were family, and that he would never leave me. When he lost his job, I supported him. When he needed money, I even lent him a large sum without asking for repayment. I dialed his number, hoping he would at least listen to me. He answered the phone quickly, and his voice was as confident and calm as ever. "Oh, sis, how are you?" he said with a slight smirk. I felt hope flare up inside. "Hi, Tom. I'm in a difficult situation. I need some help." A second of silence. Then his voice changed dramatically. "It's about money, isn't it?" I hesitated, but I pulled myself together. "Yes, I need some to get me through this period. I lost my job, and until I find a new one." Before I could finish, I heard his cold laugh. "I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. I'm barely afloat myself. I've got bills, expenses, and anyway, I'm not a bank." Those words hit me harder than I expected. "But, Tom, I helped you when you were in trouble." He grinned. "Yeah? Well, I'm sorry, but times have changed. You're on your own." The phone rang like a hammer on glass. I put the phone down on the table, stunned. He'd said no. The brother I'd always helped had just abandoned me. But at that moment, I didn't know the worst. I stared at the phone, unable to believe what I had just heard. My brother refused to help me. I tried to make excuses for him. Maybe he really doesn't have any money. Maybe he's in trouble too. But the more I thought about it, the more resentment grew. I remembered how I had always supported him when he was in difficult situations. When he lost his job, I gave him money for rent. When he got divorced, I helped him emotionally and financially. And now when I needed help, he just hung up on me. I decided to call my parents. They always said that a family should stick together. When my mom answered, I heard her calm, friendly voice. "Daughter, how are you?" "Mom, I need help now. I lost my job, and Tom refused to help me." There was silence on the phone. "Oh, darling," her voice changed, uncertain. "We can't help you now." I felt an icy lump in my chest. "What? But why?" "Well, you know we have our own expenses. We can't throw money around either." I couldn't believe my ears. "But Mom, when Tom needed money, you helped him. Why do I have to do it on my own? You see, he has a difficult situation." I jumped up from my chair, clutching the phone. "And I don't have one." Mom sighed heavily. "You've always been strong, Clara. You'll get through this." The ringtone was like a knife in the back. I realized the bitter truth. My family had abandoned me. I was alone. But that wasn't the worst of it. Soon I would learn a truth that would turn everything upside down. After talking to my mom, I sat on my bed, staring blankly at the wall. How could they do that? I always thought a family should help each other. I'd supported them through the hard times, given the last of my brother's money when he was in trouble. And now that I'm in the same position, everyone just closes their doors on me. But even as my anger boiled over, I still tried to find an excuse. Maybe they really don't have any money. A week passed. I found a temporary job at a small cafe to somehow pay the bills. It was hard, but I knew I had no choice. And then something happened that changed everything. One night I went on social media to take my mind off my problems. And then I saw this photo. My heart sank. My brother was standing in front of his new luxury SUV, showing off his new toy. In the comments, friends were congratulating him on his purchase. One of them even wrote, "That's quite a rise you've made. Glad your business is doing so well." I couldn't believe my eyes. How? Just a few days ago, he was telling me that he didn't even have money to help his sister. And now he's buying a car worth tens of thousands of dollars. I felt everything boiling up inside. He lied to me. He had money, but he chose to leave me in the lurch and enjoy himself. And I wondered if I should take offense. But now I knew the truth. He betrayed me. He used me when he needed to. And now he'd just thrown me out of his life. But he didn't know one thing. I wasn't going to let it go. I sat in front of my laptop screen, staring at the picture of my brother with his new car. My anger boiled in my chest. He'd refused to help me, lied about not having money, and bought himself a luxury SUV. In that moment, I knew I had to find out the whole truth. I remember that a few years ago, when my brother took money from me, he often sent me payments through wire transfers. So I decided to check my old bank statements. Maybe there were some clues there. When I logged into my account, several transfers from him opened up in front of me, but one of them caught my eye. The transfer was sent from an unfamiliar account. The bank he used was not the one he usually used. It looked suspicious. I decided to check further and found several other transfers from this account over the past 2 years. They were infrequent, but large. Then I had a hunch. My brother could have kept money in a secret account that no one knew about. I didn't know exactly how much money he had, but if he could afford to buy a car like that, then not only had he deceived me, but he was probably hiding a lot more than I thought. I needed to find out how much money he had in that account. I remembered that his ex-girlfriend worked at the bank. Maybe she could help me. I found her number and texted her. "Hi, Anna. It's Clara. I hope you don't mind me texting you. I have a question for you, and maybe you can help me." It took a few minutes before I got a reply. "Hello, Clara. It's been a while. What was it you wanted to ask me?" "It's about Tom. I think he's hiding money in a secret account. Do you happen to know where he might have opened it?" The answer came quickly. "It's possible. We used to talk about it when we were together. He was always worried that someone would find out about his money. I think he used a private investment bank to keep some of his savings." My heart beat faster. I was on the right track. Now I needed proof. If I could find that account, I would know the real truth about his fortune. And that would be the first step to getting mine back. I sat in front of my laptop, rereading Anna's message over and over again. If my brother really did use a private investment bank, then he could be hiding a lot more money there than I realized. But how could I access that data? I decided to start with the simplest thing, checking our parents' will. Maybe there was something in there that I didn't know about. I called a lawyer who had once worked with our family and made an appointment. When I got to his office, he looked surprised. "Clara, I didn't think I'd see you after everything that's happened. I didn't think I'd have to come to you either." I clenched my fists. "But I need to know one thing. Did my parents leave me some of the inheritance?" He frowned, opened the file, and flipped through the pages. "Yes. According to the original will, your parents left you and your brother equal shares. Half the business, half the savings, the real estate." My heart sank, but I got nothing. He looked up at me. "That's strange. The will was revised after your father died." I froze. Revised by whom? The lawyer picked up another folder and handed me the document. "At your brother's request, he had applied for a revised share of the inheritance and submitted papers according to which your father had allegedly transferred most of the assets to him." I felt a wave of anger rising in my chest. He stole my inheritance. All this time I thought he just refused to help me. But in fact, he derobbed me of everything that was rightfully mine. I gritted my teeth and asked, "Can that be challenged?" The lawyer nodded. "If you have evidence that the documents were forged or drawn up under duress." I rose from my chair. I would have proof. I knew I couldn't just leave it at that. I had to find a way to get my brother out in the open and get back what he had taken from me. It wasn't just a fight for justice anymore. It was a war. I walked out of the lawyer's office, feeling anger boiling inside me. My brother hadn't just lied to me, he had stolen everything that was rightfully mine. He'd left me with no money while he enjoyed life hiding his wealth. But now I knew the truth. I knew I had to be careful. If I made a wrong move, he would realize I was gathering evidence against him and could destroy the evidence. I decided to start with the most important thing, finding proof that he had forged the inheritance documents. Finding evidence. The next day, I met with Anna again. "Are you sure Tom is hiding the money in the investment bank?" I asked, sitting down across from her in the cafe. She nodded. "Yes. He always said he wanted to protect his finances. He had a mania for control." I took a sip of coffee, pondering. "Do you know which particular bank he might have done this at?" Anna thought for a moment, then said, "Westbrook Private Banking, perhaps. He once boasted that only the big clients kept their money there, and no one would ever find out about the accounts." That was enough for me. I decided to contact an acquaintance of mine who worked in financial investigations. His name was David, and he had once helped me sort through documents when I worked in the corporate sector. I dialed his number. David, I need your help. I'm looking for information on closed bank accounts. Who's the subject of the investigation? My brother. He stole my inheritance. There was silence on the phone for a second. Okay, I'll help you. But you'll have to be careful. If he realizes you're digging for him, he'll destroy all traces of you. I knew the risk was great, but I was ready. First strike. 3 days later, David sent me a text. He has an account at Westbrook Private Banking. And there's a lot more money in there than you think. I held my breath. How much? The answer came a minute later. Over $5 million. I felt the ground go from under my feet. $5 million. While I lived in poverty, my brother had hidden the millions he'd stolen from me. But now I had the ultimate proof, my brother's secret accounts. It was time for the first strike. I wasn't going to stop. Now it was a fight to the finish. I sat in my flat, holding the bank printouts David had handed me in front of me. Black and white. My brother owned a hidden account with over $5 million. All these years he's been lying. All these years he pretended to be a victim. And I lived in poverty because I believed him. But I wasn't going to take it anymore. I decided to face him. Meet my brother. I called Tom. We need to talk, I said. He grinned into the phone. About what? Are you in trouble again, sis? I took a deep breath, holding back my anger. Just meet me. Tomorrow at 5 at the Lancaster Cafe. He was silent for a moment, but then he answered. Okay. The next day I arrived early. I didn't know how Tom would behave when he found out I'd uncovered his lies. When he walked in, he looked relaxed, smug. Well, what have you got this time? He said, sitting down across from me. I put the file on the table. You lied to me, Tom. You've never had a problem with money. He froze. I opened the folder and spread the papers in front of him. These are the details of your secret account at Westbrook Private Banking. $5 million, Tom. And you said you didn't have any money. His face changed. Where did you get this? His voice turned cold. It doesn't matter. What matters is that now I know the truth. You stole my share of the inheritance from me. You changed the will and left me with nothing. He looked at me with irritation. You can't prove anything. You're wrong, I smiled. I have a witness. I put a letter on the table from our family lawyer who confirmed that the original will was different and Tom had changed it. He turned pale. You're not going to go to court, Clara, he said with a smirk. You're not the kind of person who fights. I leaned closer. I've already started the fight, Tom. And you're going to lose it. He clenched his fists. What do you want? Everything that's rightfully mine. If you go any further, I'll destroy you, he gritted his teeth. I stood up. No, Tom. I'll destroy you. I turned and walked away, leaving him sitting there in complete shock. Now I had everything I needed to get mine back. And he knew it. After our meeting, I left the cafe with only one thought. My brother is afraid of me. I could see it in his eyes as I laid out the documents in front of him. He didn't expect me to expose his lies. He used to think I was weak, someone who could be easily deceived. But now I wasn't who he knew I was. Now I was ready to fight. Looking for support. I realized Tom wouldn't just give up. He could destroy evidence, pressure a lawyer, or even use his connections to leave me with nothing. I needed someone to help me see this through. I called the lawyer again, who showed me my father's original will. Clara, are you sure you want to take this to court? He asked. I'm sure, I replied, but I need your help. He sighed, but I felt he was on my side. I can get the documents together, but you'll need another witness. Someone who saw Tom change the will. I wondered. An unexpected ally. And then the thought occurred to me, what if his ex-girlfriend knew something important? Anna was with him when his father died. She saw how he lived when he got the money. I decided to meet her. When I got to the cafe, Anna was already waiting for me. You said Tom kept the money in a private bank, I said. But did you know that he had changed his will? Anna frowned slightly. He never told me that outright, but I remember one occasion. I held my breath. Tell me. We were at his house. I saw him on the phone with someone, discussing fixing a document. I didn't think much of it at the time. I felt my heart beat faster. Could you confirm this in court? Anna looked at me. I'm ready. Now I had a key witness. My brother hadn't expected me to put a whole team together against him. I dialed the lawyer's number. I found what we needed. Let's get started. Now Tom had nowhere to run. I filed documents with the court for contesting the will and fraud. This was the beginning of a process that was not just to get justice, but to prove that my brother had knowingly stolen my inheritance. After filing the lawsuit, I felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. I knew Tom wouldn't give up without a fight. He always knew how to twist, manipulate, and play the victim. A few days later, I got a call from my lawyer. Tom had received notice that a lawsuit had been filed. We can expect his reaction soon. I had no doubt that this reaction would be harsh. The next day, Tom posted a long post on social media complaining about the betrayal of family members and how some people are willing to destroy a family for money. I was ready for it. He was trying to turn public opinion against me, but I had already gathered enough evidence. I knew I had to be careful not to give in to his provocations. A few days later, the lawyer informed me that my brother had decided to file a countersuit accusing me of defamation. It was expected. Tom tried everything he could to turn the situation into chaos, hoping I would break under the pressure. But now I wasn't who he thought I was. I gathered documents, found witnesses willing to testify that he'd forged the will. We were supposed to meet in the courtroom in a week. I knew it would be a crucial day. Now it was all about who was stronger. In the days before the trial, Tom kept spreading lies. He did everything he could to make me look like a greedy sister who wanted to take money from him. His social media posts were gaining support. People, not knowing the whole truth, felt sorry for him, writing that family arguments over money always lead to a breakup. I knew that if I didn't retaliate, his victim image could play into his hands in court. So I decided to make a move that would make a difference. I met with an investigative journalist and gave him documents about the will forgery, information about the secret accounts, and witness comments. 2 days later, an investigation appeared online. The headlines were loud. Inheritance scandal, how brother cheated sister and hid millions. It turns out Tom Williams forged documents to embezzle money. These articles were a lifesaver for me. Now people are starting to see the truth. There were new comments under the articles. It wasn't me who was being accused, it was my brother. How could he do that to my sister? He lied to everyone while playing the victim. I hope he'll be dealt with in a court of law. I got a call from my lawyer the next day. Nice move, Clara. Now the court won't be able to ignore those facts. I knew it was risky, but I had no choice. Now that the truth was out, Tom was in a situation where his defense was crumbling. I waited for the trial, and I knew that now I had a good chance of winning. The day of the trial came. I stood in front of the building, watching people go inside. This was the moment of truth. Everything I had done, all the evidence I had gathered, was now going to be the deciding factor. As I entered the conference room, my gaze immediately found Tom. He looked tense, but tried to hold himself with confidence. He knew he would have to fight, but I could see the uncertainty in his eyes. The judge took his seat, and the trial began. Tom's lawyer was the first to speak. He began his defense, claiming that all the charges against his client were fabricated and that I was trying to illegally take possession of his rightful inheritance. My client has evidence that her brother deliberately concealed part of the inheritance, my lawyer said, laying out the documents on the table. I could see Tom's face tense. There were account statements, witness statements, and an expert report on forged signatures. Then Anna spoke. I was next to her as Tom discussed the alteration of the documents. He bragged that he had found a way to keep all the money. Tom clenched his fists. That's a lie, he shouted. The judge looked at him sharply. If you continue to disrupt the order, I will be forced to remove you from the room. I could see that my brother was losing control. He realized that things were not going according to his plan. When my lawyer finished presenting the evidence, the judge paused, looking through the papers. There was complete silence in the room. I knew the judgment would be handed down today. I held my breath, waiting for the judge to raise his head and say his verdict. This moment was going to decide everything. There was a tense silence in the courtroom. Tom no longer looked confident. He knew the evidence against him was irrefutable. The judge flipped through the last pages of documents, then looked at us. The court reviewed the materials presented, heard the testimony of the parties, and concluded that the will had indeed been illegally altered. I heard Tom draw an air noisily. Based on the evidence available, the court orders that the amended will be cancelled and the original terms be reinstated. All assets that were wrongfully transferred to the defendant are to be returned to the plaintiff. Those words sounded like a hammer blow. I won. Tom jumped up sharply from his seat. It's not fair. It's her fault. I deserve that money, he shouted. The judge banged his gavel. One more disorderly conduct, and you will be removed from the courtroom. I looked at my brother. For the first time, he looked truly broken. He'd lost. I was taking everything that was rightfully mine. The judge continued. The court also orders the defendant to compensate the plaintiff's legal costs and to pay a fine for concealing financial assets. Tom slumped in his chair. He wasn't just losing money. He was losing everything. The judge dismissed the case. I stood up slowly, feeling the heaviness of the last few months finally begin to go away. I walked out of the courtroom without looking back. I had done what I had to do. Tom had deceived me, but in the end, he'd lost everything he tried to steal. Now my life was starting all over again, and it was in my hands alone. It was a week after the trial. I was coming home when I heard the doorbell ring. When I opened it, I saw Tom, but it wasn't the cocky, arrogant man who laughed in my face. Standing in front of me was a man who had lost everything. His expensive clothes no longer looked perfectly pressed, and his eyes were panic-stricken. "Clara, we need to talk," he said quietly. I crossed my arms over my chest, not inviting him in. "About what, Tom?" "About how you cheated on me. How you stole money that was rightfully mine." He swallowed hard. I was wrong. I realize that now. But I'm in a desperate situation. I looked at him in silence. The court ordered me to pay the fine and court costs, but I don't have that money. I've lost everything. I even had to sell my car. It didn't affect me. "Now you know what it's like to be abandoned," I said. He looked desperate. "I'm not asking for my money back," he said hastily. "I just don't have a place to live. My parents refused to help me after they learned the truth." I raised my eyebrows. "I mean, when I asked you for help, you refused to help me. And now that you're having a hard time, you come to me?" He lowered his head. "I didn't think it would go this far. I just wanted more than I was entitled to." I looked at him coldly. "That's your problem, Tom. You always think you can have anything you want. And when you have to take responsibility for your actions, you hide behind someone else's back." He clenched his fists. "You're really gonna leave me with nothing?" I wondered. If I let him back into my life, he'll try to use me again. But if I shut the door in his face, that would be fair. I took a deep breath. "I didn't leave you with nothing, Tom. You did it on your own." I slammed the door in his face. I didn't feel pity. I felt relief. I knew now that no one would ever take advantage of me again. I stood at the window, watching my brother walk away. His steps were heavy, his shoulders slumped. He wasn't the cocky man who'd once laughed in my face when I'd asked for help. Now he knew what it meant to lose everything. But I felt no pity. This struggle had changed me. I went through betrayal, lies, lawsuits, and manipulation, but in the end I got I was no longer a naive woman who trusted people unconditionally. I now knew the price of truth, taking back control. Shortly after the trial, I officially gained access to all the assets I owned. The business that had once been part of our family legacy was now in my hands. I had no intention of selling it. I wanted to prove not only to myself, but to the world that I could succeed without deception and manipulation. I revamped the company's strategy, hired people I could trust, and slowly began to rebuild its reputation. It was a long process, but now I was in control of my destiny. And Tom, he disappeared from my life. I heard he was trying to get a new job, but no one wanted to do business with a man who was involved in such a scandal. But that wasn't my problem anymore. He'd made his choice. A new life. A few months passed. I was sitting in my office, looking at papers, and suddenly I realized that I felt absolute peace. There's no one controlling me anymore. I decide where I go from here. I am no longer afraid of loss because now I know I can handle any situation. This struggle made me stronger. And now I knew for sure. No one will ever again take away what is mine. I will never again allow myself to be a victim. My life is in my hands now.